Thank you. Good evening, everybody. This is the Dearborn Community Concert Band. My name is Jeff Oshnock. We've decided on a theme for this concert concerning color. And we decided to choose tunes that had a color in the name of the tune. So, how many tunes can you think of with colors in it? You know, everybody thinks of Yellow Submarine first. I discovered that black and blue are the most common colors in names of music. Now, I know musicians are a rough crowd, but black and blue? So, that's our theme, and you're going to notice all the titles except one. When we play it, I'll tell you why. It doesn't have a color in it. We're going to start with a Sousa March, composed in 1924. It's the Black Horse Troop, which was a troop in Cleveland, Ohio. Of course, they rode black horses. Many of the Sousa band members expressed their fondness for this composition and commented on the descriptive character it assumed when performed by Sousa himself. Part of the effect was due to the 6/8 rhythm that may mean nothing to you, but that suggested the canter of the horses. He used that in this march, and also contributing to the effect was Sousa's use of simulated hoof beats. So this is the Black Horse Troop, John Philip Sousa. Hope you enjoy it. Thank you, thank you. Hope you enjoyed that. Our next tune, it's a French pop tune. Love is Blue, or L'amour est bleu. It's been recorded by many musicians, most notably French orchestra leader Paul Marier, whose familiar instrumentation version recorded in late 1967 became the first #1 by a French lead artist to top the Billboard 100 in the United States. As far as color goes, Love is Blue describes the pleasure and pain of love in terms of colors, blue and gray, and elements, water and wind. The lyrics of the English version, blue, blue, my world is blue, focus us on colors, blue, gray, red, green, and black, using them to describe components of lost love. This is Love is Blue. Anybody here remember that tune in 1967? Yeah, right. Yeah, I do too. It was really popular. I think that group played on Ed Sullivan. Next tune, Whiter Shade of Pale, recorded by English rock band Procol Harum. It was issued as their debut record on 12th of May 1967. The single reached number one on the UK singles chart on June 8th and stayed there for 6 weeks. It reached number 5 on US Billboard 100. This is one of the anthems of the 1967 Summer of Love. It sold more than 10 million copies worldwide, and more than 1,000 other people covered this tune. That's how popular it was. This is Whiter Shade of Pale. Thank you. A little bit about the group. We call ourselves the Dearborn Community Concert Band. We're actually a wind ensemble, and the difference is we're so small, we generally have one person on a part. In a band, it's doubled. You know, you might have 40 clarinets, and a dozen of them are playing the same parts. We don't have that luxury. Each person in this group's a soloist. And there are some very famous wind ensembles. It's good and bad. The huge band, the 100-piece concert band, you've got a lot of depth. You could spread parts around. Could make it a little less stressful on the conductor and the musicians. But we enjoy doing this. We've been doing it now for 7 years. We rehearse Tuesday nights at 6, usually right here on stage. If you still play, you want to join us, show up. We've gotten, even from a lot of these people here sitting down, I haven't touched my instrument in years, they'll say. They bring it out, case creaks. They put it together, get a lot of squeaking and squawking, but it comes back. It's amazing. You don't forget how to read music. You might be slow on some of the technical stuff. That all comes back. So if you'd like to join us, that would be great. We start the Tuesday after Labor Day is our first rehearsal. We have 4 regular concerts a year, 2 in the fall, 2 in the spring. This is our last one for the year. We take the summer off, and then we'll start back up. There are instruments we really need. We've got one person in the back there covering several instruments. We could use trombones, trumpets, any kind of brass instrument. That's for Angelo back there. So, that's myself or the band. So if you'd like to join us, most people figure out, most musicians, by the second or third rehearsal whether they can do this or not. I don't do auditions anymore. I haven't done that since COVID. So if you want to come and play with us, you'll figure it out. You'll know whether you can cut this stuff with us. All right, enough of the sell job. The next tune, the Black and White Rag. Now, it was originally written for piano. That's why black and white, the black and white keys. It was written as a ragtime in 1908 by George Botsford. It was widely recorded for the phonograph and player piano. And early recordings by the American Symphony Orchestra were on the Edison cylinder that you see over at Greenfield Village. So, Black and White Rag, hope you enjoy it. Wasn't that fun to listen to? Oh my God, it was a blast. The next tune, I think it's called The British Invasion. I'm only concentrating on one tune. It was the only place I could find the tune Mellow Yellow. And it's in there. So I'm only going to talk about that tune. The rest of the tunes you'll know. So the song, and I didn't know this, I just learned this. The song was rumored to be about smoking dried banana skins, which was believed to be a hallucinogenic drugs in the 1960s. Though this aspect of bananas has since been debunked. According to the composer, Donovan, liner notes for the album Donovan's Greatest Hits, the rumor that one could get high from smoking dried banana skins was started by Country Joe McDonald in 1966. Donovan heard the rumor, and 3 weeks later, he came out with this tune, Mellow Yellow. This is The British Invasion. Hope you enjoy it. Thank you. Sorry you had to wait to the end to hear that tune. Okay, next on the color list, the blue and the gray. Of course, that refers to the Civil War. This was composed by Claire Grundman in 1961 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the start of the Civil War. And it includes famous Civil War songs such as Kingdom Coming, Marching Through Georgia, The Yellow Rose of Texas, Battle Cry of Freedom, and the Battle Hymn of the Republic. I think I remember hearing Dixie in there too. So this is the blue and the gray. Hope you enjoy it. Thank you. Glad you enjoyed that. Great tune. The next one. It's great if you're under 10. It's an animated show called Bluey. My granddaughters love the show. The show follows Bluey, a 6-year-old, later 7-year-old blue heeler puppy who is full of energy, imagination, and curiosity about the world. She lives with her father, Bandit, mother, Chili, and younger sister, Bingo, who regularly joins Bluey on adventures as the pair embark on an imaginative play together. It's an Australian show, and the dogs speak with an Australian accent. Overarching themes include family life growing up in Australian culture. Brisbane, the state capital of Queensland, inspires the show's setting. Now, we're doing the extended version. So not only the Bluey tune with the characters being announced, but each section of the band's going to be featured. And our bass player, amongst others, is going to announce who is playing next. I appreciate the help out there. I heard you. It was very good. That was a fun tune to play, and it's a lot harder than you might imagine. I was very surprised. So we've come to our last number, the American Red Cross March, Louis Pinella. It was meant to honor the work of the Red Cross during World War I. It's a stellar example of the American March tradition. It shows why the composer is considered one of Pittsburgh's most revered musicians, Louis Pinella. This is the American Red Cross March. Hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks for coming out on a Wednesday night. Good night.